Patrick Allvin drops the shocking truth on the Canucks' future that's sure to divide fans. But first, Jim Rutherford addresses the Elias Pettersson-sized elephant in the room, holding nothing back and calling out the superstar in a recent press conference. We're going to be breaking out all that in this episode of Canucks Digest, but first, make sure to hit that subscribe button and click the bell icon so you don't miss any and all Canucks updates as we get closer and closer to free agency getting through these playoffs. And with that, let's hop straight into the first topic of the day, which is buying in is critical. So what I'm referring to here is what Jim Rutherford was saying about Elias Pettersson in yesterday's press conference with Patrick Allvin, saying he's going to have to buy into being a complete player. He's going to have to buy into working hard. We know that he's working hard, but he's going to have to do that all summer. And following up with it, saying he's going to have to buy into what the coach wants him to do, and part of buying in is being a complete player if you want to have a contending team. He's got the ability to do it, just got to buy into it and prepare properly in the off season. So we heard talking the other day how Pettersson has to do something to change up how he's training in the offseason because of how it went this year, and just if something doesn't work, you got to change it up until something does work. So with that, Pettersson has been sticking around the facilities, has been in the facilities every single day since the season ended, as Talkett was saying, as Allvin was saying, as Rutherford was saying. So it seems like Petey is determined to get back to the way that he was so that he doesn't have a repeat season like we just had this past one. So with that, I do love that Jim Rutherford is just coming out and saying, hey, he's got to buy in. And he did go into an analogy, which I absolutely loved. When Steve Yzerman was with Scotty Bowman, and Steve Yzerman was getting a lot of points, but Scotty Bowman said, hey, do you want points or do you want Stanley Cups? Same thing happened with Sidney Crosby and Mike Sullivan got there, where Pittsburgh hadn't won a cup in a few years, and then Mike Sullivan gets there, they go back to back, or they win 3 and 4 years, or whatever the hell they did. So yeah, with that, Jim Rutherford knows what he's talking about here, and he knows that Elias Pettersson is going to get his points if he starts trusting his shot again. It's going to be no surprise, just like Quinn Hughes. You know Quinn Hughes is going to score. You know Quinn Hughes is going to get assists. You know Quinn Hughes is just going to put up massive numbers in a season. He expects that out of Elias Pettersson, so he knows that the points are going to be a part of that, but you have to buy into the team. You have to buy into the system. You have to buy into what your role is and fulfill those needs as you are expected to. So with that, I definitely like that Jim Rutherford isn't exactly putting the pressure on Pettersson or saying anything crazy here, but he is definitely calling him out, saying, hey, this is what you have to do if you want to be one of the greats. We see this potential in you. We know that you can do it. We've seen you been able to do it in your career. Now it's just a matter of getting back to that point. So yeah, Rutherford, he's giving a little bit of tough love here, but he's not going as harsh as a lot of you guys have been in the comments, or as much as some of us have been on this show as well in some of the criticisms of Pettersson this season. However, with that, I definitely think that this was a really solid amount of questions or answers that Rutherford was supplying on the Elias Pettersson situation. As far as what Allvin said, we're going to hop into that in a second. But staying on Rutherford here, I know there was a big press conference. Everyone's talking about the tampering thing. The NHL isn't going after him for that, so that's a good thing. He was just kind of half joking there, I'm guaranteeing. But everyone was just hanging on to a few of these things. But the Elias Pettersson one was really the one that struck a chord with me, especially when he made that Yzerman and Bowman comparison and just saying he's got to buy in. It's simple as that, and I love how just it didn't overcomplicate it. Rutherford didn't try and give a massive thing or just try and over-explain the situation. He was just saying, hey, it's as simple as this. This is what he has to do. If he's willing to do it, perfect. That's exactly what we need him to do. We know that he's able to do it. If not, that's when things are going to get a little bit tricky. But what did you guys think about what Rutherford was saying on the Elias Pettersson stuff? Do you think he was saying something different than what we were interpreting? Or do you think we were right on the money with what we were interpreting his words as being? And do you think that this was exactly what Pettersson needed to hear? And do you agree with the comparisons that he made with the Scotty Bowman, Steve Yzerman, and Mike Sullivan and Sidney Crosby? Let us know what you guys have to say down in the comments below. But that's going to take us into our second topic of the day, which is Allvin's Pettersson stance. So Noah Strang put out a tweet of a quote from Allvin's part of the press conference saying that he refuses to say they won't 100% trade Pettersson before July 1st. He said, I would be stupid not to keep my options open. And he did talk about this a bit throughout the press conference. However, one thing that he maintained and that Rutherford maintained as well is that we still believe Elias is more than capable of coming back. As he has shown in the past year in Vancouver, I think he is about to take his game to the next level. It's encouraging to see his determination and work ethic. And then continuing as well on his season, I do believe that the last 3 years, Elias has had one down year, which was this year. It's not about the individual points. It's about playing the right way in order to win. kind of piggybacking off of what Rutherford was saying, where he's got to buy in and just do it the right way, so it's not just trying to pad stats like a lot of other players tend to do in the NHL, looking at one other Canadian team that tends to wear blue quite often, as well as white, as one of those teams that tends to pad stats and just kind of get individual points rather than team wins. Mind you, that team's in the playoffs and we aren't. However, that's going to be a topic for next season when the tables will probably turn on that end, or at least we last a little bit longer in the playoffs when we get there next season. But with this on Patrik Allvin's side of things, saying that he would be stupid not to keep his options open, I don't think he's necessarily saying anything salacious here in that sense of saying, yeah, we're 100% going to be trying to keep him on the trade block. We know that Pettersson was previously on the trade block, so him saying this is just paired with the precedent that the Canucks had before the trade deadline of trying to move him or seeing what the options were with him or JT Miller. They took the JT Miller route and shipped him out and got a decent return back from it. But with Pettersson, it's not surprising to say, yeah, of course he's going to keep his options open because you could get potentially a lot for him. Just yesterday, we were talking about the crazy possibility of the Hughes brothers coming to Vancouver. Mark was throwing the suggestion out there of if you put a package out there of Pettersson and Willander and Lekkerimäki for both of those guys, or maybe some picks, who knows, maybe you do get that deal done. That could be something Patrik Allvin's thinking about, not necessarily related to New Jersey, but in a situation where you could get a lot for Elias Pettersson in that scenario where if a team is hungry or is needing a guy like Elias Pettersson and is in the right system for him, they'll definitely be willing to offer up a lot for him. And I don't think the Canucks are in that desperate low ball situation that they were at the trade deadline because they were a lot more decimated because obviously they were still trying to push for a playoff run. But now they go into the offseason. They're not having to worry about playoffs, obviously, because we're not there. And so that takes a bit of the pressure off of trying to get a deal just done, just to get a deal done before a deadline. But with that, I don't think a lot of teams are going to be trying to lowball them, but there definitely will be a fair share that'll try to lowball the Canucks because they're going to say, hey, you got a problem on your hands. We want to help you with that problem. We'll try and give you the worst offer that you're going to get or the best of the worst offers that you'll get. However, I do not think this is the scenario. I think that Pettersson will be staying in Vancouver. I just think Patrik Allvin saying that is just throwing it out there for teams saying, hey, if you want to throw us offers, but it's going to have to be a damn good one if you want us to part with our $11.6 million player who, yes, has not played like that since getting that extension. But like Patrik Allvin was saying, Jim Rutherford, Rick Tocchet, they all have faith in Elias Pettersson that he's going to be able to bounce back. Players as well in their interviews saying that they're confident he'll be able to get back to his groove, find that confidence, clear out whatever skeletons are in his mental closet or anything like that, and get back to the proper training. Even Pettersson saying too how he wasn't able to train properly. Allvin saying that he wasn't able to train properly as well. So there was a lot of factors of Pettersson heading into this season. And yes, there's no excuse for what we saw on the ice, but there definitely was a lot of factors playing into it. Not just the injury. You had the JT Miller stuff. You had the social media stuff. You had a lot of things. And yes, everyone's going to jump on it saying he's soft and all those things and he should be tougher. He's been in the NHL long enough. But at the end of the day, he's still only my age. I'm 26. I'll be 27 this year. He's still relatively young. And yes, in NHL terms, it's not very young. I get it. Where a lot of guys, they come into the league as young as their early 20s or even their late teens if they're just an absolute phenom. And there is a lot of learning that does come with that. And Elias Pettersson, we're seeing this transition period with him. This isn't necessarily a matter of, oh, he needs to grow up or just finally just get on that adult train and just finally just buckle up. No, it's a matter of he's going into this situation of, yeah, he just got a massive contract extension coming off of injury, all the drama with the team, social media ripping him apart, not having the right people in his social circle, not being able to train the way that he wanted to train. So much of these and all of that added pressure with that $11.6 million price tag. It's a lot to live up to. And yeah, it could just be an adjustment period. If this is something that continues, I'll eat my words and I'll say that we got to ship him out and we got to bite the bullet on that contract. However, seeing as this is just the first year of 8, this is still a very long contract and a lot more to see of it. And yes, it was a very rough year, but it wasn't just a rough year for him. It was a rough year for Quinn Hughes. It was a rough year for no longer there JT Miller. It was a rough year for Kiefer Sherwood. As much as he just wanted to just work his ass off and do what he could, he still went through his fair share of battles. Noah Juleson, he got knocked out of the season. Philip Hedl, so many injuries. And yes, it is no excuse. But when you have all these things contributing and you have most of your top 6 out for a lot of the year and you're having to rely on bottom 6 guys or AHL guys to fill that void, yeah, it's not going to translate to wins or individual team stats really that are very special, especially when those best players are out for the longest amount of times than those other guys. So yeah, it does suck, and it is the reality situation. However, with Pettersson, I think he's going into the second phase of his career where he got through the early part of it where he was super young, really breaking out, being a superstar, and earning that $11.6 million contract. Because if you were to ask any Canucks fan before that extension was given out, they would have given him maybe not that much, but they would have given him a very similar contract of that size because of the numbers he was putting up. No one could have predicted what happened with the off-ice stuff, and as far as the dip in production that he had. He's never had that, and he had a career worst year. It's definitely something that hopefully is just an anomaly. However, getting that extension, coming into year 2 of that extension with a bit more confidence, fully healthy, no drama, that's going to be where he's going to be able to say, okay, that last season, that was adversity, that was a learning experience, I've learned from it, I can be better, I am better for it, and now you can just erase that and just go into year 2 and treat it as if year 1 never happened of that contract, and try and eradicate that. Because I guarantee you that if he goes and balls out for even 5 of these 8 years on his contract, people will still be able to say, okay, it was a successful contract, and if it translates to cups, amazing. But I still think if you sign a guy for long term and he gets you more good years than not, still a pretty good win. Maybe not to the extent that you want it to, or that with the price tag that it comes with. However, still would be a success. And obviously, any of this would be a success regardless of individual stats as long as Vancouver brings home a Stanley Cup. But what do you guys think about all this down in the comments? Do you think Elias Pettersson will be traded before July 1st? Or do you think the Vancouver Canucks will keep him on the roster for the rest of his contract, or at least for the next season or so until these talks come up around the trade deadline, as they inevitably will because he's a superstar and they just want to see a blockbuster trade around the league? Let us know what you guys have to say down in the comments below. But with that, I've been your host, Griffin. Take care.